Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. We have a lot of people listening in, so I'm very excited about that. My name is Christian, and I'm the CEO of Planday, and I've agreed to be the moderator of today's webinar. We have brought some experts together today to help us answer the basic questions. What is actually happening right now with the COVID-19? How is it impacting the industry, and what can we do to ride off the storm? So the partners we have today on the call is Christian from Tenzo. We have Peter from Institute of Hospitality. We have Jill from HIT Training. We have Adrian from Lightspeed and Dino from Falcon.io. This team has joined me to have a discussion on getting as concrete as possible. What do we know and what can we do to ride off the storm? So to quickly introduce myself, my name is Christian, as I said before, and I'm the CEO of Planday. I'll say I used to look like the nice looking man on the picture there, but for the last almost 4 weeks, I guess, I've been at home with my 3 very active kids trying to run Planday alongside many other people working from home. Today is actually one of the first days I've gone into the office to get some quiet to speak to you, so I look forward to that. And all jokes aside, it will be nice to be back in business, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So quickly, Planday, for those of you who may not know it, we are employee management software platform that you can use to schedule your employees, but we also cover HR, communication, time and attendance, salary, and reporting. We have been and are putting ourselves into this webinar with our soul, because the customers we have, that's you. We have more than 5,000 hospitality customers and more than 300,000 users spread across UK, US, Germany, France, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. So when you are hurting, the truth is we are hurting. So we have all interest in sharing every possible information we can on what can we do together to get through this. So my basic problem is the same as many of yours. If you could change the slide, please. I'm a leader managing 200 plus people here at Planday, and I need to make some tough decisions. I know many of you are in the same situation. You need to make decisions on how to run your business in times of unknowns. And actually, that's the key problem that we have right now. Right now, we need to take decisions without really knowing the depth of the disruption, like how deep will this actually cut. We don't know at this time how long will the disruption last before we sort of start opening back up again. And once we see societies open back up, we're not really sure what will the recovery look like. Will it bounce back or will it be a gradual long opening? So in this scenario, it's actually really tough to take the right decisions and to take them fast enough. So I want to know, what do we know? What is all the knowledge we have that we can actually use for something? And how can we get together as an industry to make the necessary decisions fast enough? If we look at today's agenda, that's what I'll discuss with the experts we've invited. So we'll begin with Peter and Christian to talk about what is it actually we do know. So the current picture is important to understand. I think a lot of you sit and feel somewhat alone in this. I for sure know I do sometimes when I sit and have to make these decisions. I think it's to some degree there's a comfort to understand we're all in this. Every single business is impacted. And as I said, out of our 5,000 customers myself, I've talked to a lot of customers and probably a lot of you on this call. And I know that your business is impacted, but actually how is what we want to zoom in on. So I have these 2 gentlemen joining me in that regard. Sorry, I need to get in on the slides. Can you move one up, please? We're still on the agenda. One up. Sorry about that. One down. Thank you. So after the initial discussion there, we will jump into Yeah, sorry guys, I have some problems with the technicalities here. There we go. We'll jump into 3 other speakers, where we have Jill and Adrian and Dino joining me, where we'll discuss more about what can we then actually do. These are all people with a long-standing industry knowledge, and we have taken some very concrete discussions to get down into depth. What can you actually do right now? And finally, at the end, we'll get in to take your questions in the audience and discuss what we can do there from the experts here to help with any guidance and advice we can. So if we jump into the first session, and before we do that, I just want to introduce a tool we have where you can actually ask questions. It's a tool called Slido. And if you, in your browsers, go into www.slide.do and enter the event code United We Stand. When you log in, there's a line where you just take this. You can actually ask your questions in there. Do not use the chat in the webinar tool here, but use Slido as the thing. In there, you can also see what are the questions other people from the audience has asked. And if you see a particular question that you would like us to debate or discuss, you can actually upvote the questions you feel are most important for the panel here to discuss. So everyone go into Slido and log in there, and then we will also have your input to discuss in the end. Okay, if you go to the first session, I have Peter and Christian to discuss what are we actually looking into. What is the situation as we're in right now? So first of all, Peter, I'd like to zoom in on you. And Peter, just to introduce yourself, you have, in all fairness, been around hospitality for a long time. I know that you have discussed or you have been in the hotel management. I also know you have founded your own hotel booking platform. You have served on various boards within hospitality businesses, and since 2013, you have been the executive chair, or the chief executive, sorry, for the Institute of Hospitality. So Peter, I've had the pleasure of talking to yourself a number of times, and I know that you have seen and done a lot over the years. So I think an interesting remark is with all your businesses you're talking to, what do you see? What is actually the situation that COVID-19 has impacted hospitality with in particular? And I think looking back to some of the previous crises that I also know you've seen, is there any parallels we can draw to, for instance, the financial crisis we saw last in 2008 that we can also use to navigate us through what we see right now?
Okay, well, good afternoon, Christian, and hello, everybody. I think first and foremost, to answer your question, we've got most of our members are in the UK, but we have members around the world. So I'm hearing different stories from around the world. I think it's probably best if I talk about what I'm seeing in the UK, because obviously that's where I'm closest to, and that's where I'm hearing most of the stuff from. And I have to say, the first thing is there is absolutely no good news at all in the industry. There's lots of heartwarming stories about good things which hotels, restaurants, and other people are doing to support the health workers and support other essential workers. But in terms of the business, there is no good news. I saw a report this morning that restaurant sales are currently, we're losing £1 billion a week out of restaurants. Retailers, you know, the supermarkets are seeing an uptick of about 200 million. So people are buying their food at the supermarket rather than in the restaurants, obviously. I haven't got any figures for what's happening in bars or in pubs or in clubs, but just in restaurants, I say we're looking at a hemorrhage from the industry of £1 billion a week. And I think that's causing massive difficulties and is not going to go away, because I think it'll be a long time before people are comfortable going to restaurants which are crowded. So I was hearing yesterday that in Italy, they're keeping restaurants closed. I was reading this morning that airlines, when they start flying again, will only be allowed to fly with 30–40% capacity, so that we can still sit apart from each other. And these things are all really going to be medium-term things, long-term things, I think. To answer about the parallel previous recessions and the financial crisis of 2008, I think that the thing about this one is the speed that we've been hit at. It really has come without any warning. In weeks, we've gone from being a tremendously strong-looking first quarter to suddenly, by the end of the first quarter, we're in lockdown. And you know, I think that the speed that it's hit us is unlike any recession I've ever seen before. Certainly unlike the financial crisis, where there was a gradual, reasonably gradual, sort of 3 or 4 months of deterioration, but we knew the direction of travel. This has really hit us. And I think because of that, we're all feeling, I think the feeling I have been getting, and it's beginning to change now, it's almost like bereavement. We're going through that cycle of sort of, you know, shock and denial, then anger, and then depression. And now we're at the stage where we're trying to rationalize it amongst ourselves or with ourselves before we accept it and begin to, people are beginning to plan for, what do I do when I'm not housebound anymore, when I can actually reopen my business? And I think, just rattling through the questions you're asking me there, what's happened so far is hundreds of thousands, literally hundreds of thousands of staff have been put on furlough. So they're being supported by the government furlough scheme. A lot of staff have been let go and are now unemployed, and that's a worry because they're potentially lost to the industry. And 3 months ago, if we were talking, Christian, we'd just be talking about the staff shortage and about the shortage of skills, and suddenly we're losing people like that. I think at the moment people are getting their heads around the fact that there will be a future. We will come out of this the other side, and people are focusing first and foremost on what they need to do to protect their asset, to protect their buildings, to keep their buildings ready to reopen. So whether it's hotels making sure that the showers are, you know, Legionnaire's disease free, and or whether it's people keeping their kitchens clean and up to speed so they're ready to go. There has to be an amount of preventative maintenance going on all the time. But I think people are also working much harder now at saying, how do we stay in touch with our staff? How, you know, they're on furlough, everyone's home based. How can we stay in touch and communicate with them so that we still feel together as a family within the business? That's happening. And also, how do we stay in touch? How do we maintain touch, maintain contact with our clients? Because come the day, my God, we're going to need our clients back again. That's what I'm seeing. And I think we haven't even started to think yet about how our businesses are going to change long term, because people's habits are going to change. It's going to take people a long time to get back into having the confidence to go out and do things. I think travel is going to be curtailed for a long time. I was talking to somebody over the weekend who was saying, of course, the big challenge is going to be that travel insurance is going to be enormously expensive and may well depend on getting all sorts of certificates of vaccination and of immunity before you can take out insurance, because obviously there's a big impact there. So I think we've got to start thinking about, will our supply chain look the same when we reopen? What businesses are going to have gone from the supply chain? You know, are we going to suddenly find that our wine merchant or our butchers are no longer in business? And how are people's buying habits going to change? What are they going to want us to be doing for them and providing for them when things change? Does that answer your question there, Christian? That's what I'm seeing. It does.
And thank you, Peter. And I actually think it's very important, because I mean, when I speak to a lot of the entrepreneurs out there and the restaurateurs and so forth, I think the common thing I see is we don't really want to believe it's this rough. You know, many spent years to build up a fantastic business. To your own point, a few months, it was thriving. It has been really good times for a long time. And we don't want to believe things are changing. We want to believe this is all going to be over in a moment. And I think what you put in really frame in here is we have to realize it. We have been disrupted like anything we've seen before, even if you've been around from the financial crisis last time. And things are not going to bounce back. I think that's what I hear you say like that, because there's too many layers already happening, both within staff, within suppliers, within behaviors, and this is not going to be fixed in a moment. So I think for those of you who are sitting out there who don't want to believe this, and I have to say I'm actually one of them. I find myself many days looking myself in the mirrors and asking, is this just a bad movie, right? When is it going to be over? I think many is coming around to the point, okay, it is not just going to go away. And that's also the timing for this webinar, is to zoom in and say, okay, things has changed, so what do we do now? So thank you, Peter, for that. I know it's not easy, not always being the bearer of good news, but I think in these times, it is equally important to be the bearer of what is the realistic situation. So thanks to that, and we'll come back to discuss this more in details. I want to zoom in on the next in line we have on the panel, just to get a bit more nuances also on this. So Christian, CEO and co-founder of Tenzo. So Christian, what I really like about having you in the panel is your mixed background. So obviously you have a degree in computer science from Cambridge, but you have also been a restaurateur yourself, being the founder of Hummus Bros. I think 6 outlets, as far as I know, serving, was it 12,000 meals a week at
That's
one
right.
point. Things was going well. So Christian, you used this incredible insight both to computer science and in real practical terms for hospitality to co-found Tenzo, where you're an analytics platform for hospitality today. So Christian, I know you'll bring us a lot of really relevant insights to what's actually happening right now, and I also know you have some advice to how to go about it. But before that, really quick questions. Can you just explain to me in a few words, what is Tenzo? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, thank you, Christian, and thanks for having me. And hello, everyone. Yes, Tenzo is a analytics and forecasting platform for the restaurant industry. What we do is we connect to all the tools within the restaurant. So your point of sale, your labor scheduler, your inventory tool, to make all that data available to you, your GMs, your whole team, to be able to make better decisions. And some of the data I'm going to run you through today is anonymized and aggregated across a number of our customers. And we've been sharing that regularly through the crisis, just to show everyone, to your point earlier on, you're not alone on this. Everyone's been hit extremely hard.
All right, Christian, let's dig into some of your data. And first and foremost, I look forward to also get to the last part, which is some of the advice I know you brought with us today based on the data. So take us through it. What do you see?
Perfect. Thank you, Christian. So there's 3 parts I just want to run through. So obviously the first one is how COVID-19 has impacted the restaurant. Look through the data that we have and show you through that. The second bit is going to be about how consumers are reacting and what does that mean for restaurants. And then finally, what does the recovery look like and what can restaurants do at this point in preparation for that. So if we could go to the next slide, that would be great. So what we did is we put together some data from 136 UK hospitality sites in London and in the surrounding areas, just to show a little bit about the impact that COVID has had. We were showing, as to Peter's previous point, November and December were growing very healthily, 6% or more year on year. And really it's towards February and really clearly in March and very quickly, within a week, we went from minus 6.7 to minus 22% year on year. And that's just a week. That's week starting March 2nd, week starting March 9th. So extremely rapid and a huge impact on the industry. If we could go to the next slide, please. And what we've done is put together a bit of a graph here that shows 2 things. The orange curve is really the number of open locations. So we're just showing at what point did restaurants start closing. And the black curve is really how much of a year-on-year change the restaurants have seen. And we've put a few dates in just to show you some of the major milestones here. So you can see on March 14th, that's when France decided to close all the restaurants, bars and cafes. And sadly, the death toll in the UK had jumped to 21. So this was still early days in the UK, but you see that already sales are there down 24% year on year, or everything is still open. A couple of days later, the Prime Minister encourages social distancing, there we start seeing sales down 51% year on year. So clearly people are, even before any of the lockdown or before restaurants have closed, there was a huge fall in sales. And that continued, and in fact, restaurants at that point started already closing. You see there's a big fall from 135 to 97. So 30% of restaurants there just closed before the Prime Minister mandated it, at which point we had 76. And then finally, on the 23rd of March, the Prime Minister enforces a UK-wide lockdown, and that's when restaurants fell to 22. So 80% or more of the restaurants were closed. The ones that remain open are ones that are doing deliveries, the ones that are running as dark kitchens. And interestingly, the year-on-year change, the reason that's gradually, if you want, become less worse is that the ones that are remaining open, some of them are performing actually very well in this with only just deliveries, without any eat-in or takeaway. So there are some that are there. Consumers are looking to still get food from their favorite restaurants. So running delivery operations is something that might be worth considering. If we go to the next slide, please. So in terms of how consumers are reacting, if we could go to the next slide. Clearly, the alternative, as Christian outlined at the beginning, is really supermarkets. Typically, supermarkets cater between 50 and 60% of all meals in the UK at a normal time. They are now catering over 95%. So we're seeing the top supermarkets, and you see it on the left-hand side there, are seeing growth of 25 to 30% year on year. They're getting hit by more demand than they would have typically at Christmas, and have time to prepare for that. So they're doing a fantastic job of picking up that demand. And very interestingly, I think we're also seeing a lot of deliveries, as per my previous point. And the slide, the graph on the right-hand side shows you already people that are already increasing their delivery frequency. So that's the light blue. The dark blue is the ones that are planning to increase delivery frequency. And the interesting thing is, clearly it would be what you would expect. The younger portion of the population are already ordering deliveries and have got used to that. But we're now seeing the age groups of 35 to 54, and in particular 55 and over, really considering that delivery. So regardless what your restaurant is, there is an opportunity here to be looking at doing delivery, and there are a number of people out there that are very responsive to this. If we could go to the next slide, please. So I just wanted to put a few points here that what we've seen some of our customers do, or how are restaurants reacting generally in the short term. What can you do during the crisis? Clearly, there's a piece around adapting your business model, doing more around the deliveries, thinking about product bundles, moving into retail, i.e. delivering direct your supplies produced to your customers. So being that conduit from the supplier to the restaurant, to the consumers. We're seeing Leon do that, where they've turned their restaurants into mini supermarkets, and clearly Uber Eats really trying to support the restaurant industry by waiving their delivery fees. Secondly, there's really looking at government funding. You'll all be aware of this, furloughing your staff, which allows the government to pay up to 80% of their salaries, up to $2,500 per month. That's been in place since the 1st of March. There's a lot of good information online around that. Business rate reductions, so basically having no business rates to pay this year and actually getting a grant towards that. And finally, the CBILS, so the business interruption loans, which my view for restaurants and for small businesses like Tenzo is not exactly the right tool at this point, but the first 2 points are clearly helping the industry. I believe there will be more that will be announced as time goes by, but clearly the government also is struggling to figure out how to react to this, and I'm sure they're getting a lot of pressure from a lot of different parts of the economy. And finally, the third interesting piece, which I think is amazing, is really helping, using our expertise and using the industry to really help feed the essential workers, feed people that are in need, arranging volunteering. Clearly Pret and a number of other restaurant chains have been doing a lot on that, and I think it's something that as much as we can, we should be encouraging. And I'm seeing a lot of different chains actually raise money in order to be doing this, so might be something worth considering to keep some operations running too. Could go to the next slide. So finally, I'd like to talk about what the recovery looks like, and in particular look at how what China has been seeing. So if we could go to the next slide. 9 weeks on, 35% of stores remain closed in China. Clearly a number have come back, restaurants have reopened, but if we could go to the next slide, I'll show you. There's three main lessons really that we're seeing from the recovery in China. The first one is going back to normal times will take time. Once the lockdown is lifted, what we're seeing in China is people are reluctant to go out to eat. They're still ordering deliveries and takeaways, but not so much wanting to go out. The recovery also will be slow, with revenue decreases lasting months. This is not going to be, I don't believe anyone thinks this is going to be a V-shaped recovery at this point. Secondly, strong brands will mean higher sales. So recognizable brands, at these ones in China, we're seeing that they're back to 70% of pre-COVID levels. The small businesses will require deliberate communication to really win back their customers. And I think it's important, even in this time, to be communicating with them regularly, either to organize quizzes or engage with them in different ways to really keep them thinking of your brand. And then finally, the delivery bump will persist. I mean, if you see what Alibaba, which is who did deliveries before the crisis, they've been hiring former waiters to deliver the food, to reconvert them to delivery people, because there is so much demand now. And then finally, if we could move to the final slide. So I just wanted to put a few questions here of like, how do restaurants come back online, things that need to be considered. There are probably going to be new regulations once we reopen. To Peter's point earlier on, that we'll probably have to have tables that are further apart than they used to be. There'll probably be new staff hygiene rules. There will be maybe regulations around outdoor seating only. These are just speculation. I don't know any of this, but it seems likely that this is going to happen. There's probably also going to be only some people that are allowed out initially. Younger people that might have built up immunity. They talk about immunity passports. And then finally, there might be only some regions or cities that are open at certain times. So it might not be the whole country that reopens. They might only do this by certain regions. So what does this mean? I think, first of all, it's really thinking about what locations and when. So, identify your best performing locations, look at what they could look like in a post-COVID world. Can you put more space between the tables? Can you have delivery only or takeaway only in those stores? Secondly, is really looking at forecasting demand and planning against it. Are you going to be looking at staffing levels at the minimum versus more? How much food to order in? How much to prep? Really thinking around the whole forecasting piece is going to become critical, because it's going to be, margins are going to be even tighter. And then finally, changing the offering and operational module. So, should you be looking at the menu if because of the supply chain being disrupted? Should you be changing channels, like doing more deliveries? Looking at the staff training, looking at other operational changes, such as like wearing masks, etc. So these are just questions to get them some thoughts running. Happy to answer any questions at the end of this. And also, if you want to reach out to me at any time and ask any questions, very happy to answer those too. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Christian. And on that note, just to remind everybody, you can ask questions indeed on Slido. So again, go into Slido and then enter United We Stand and ask questions. We are aware of those, and we'll get to those in the end. So just to sum up here, we had Peter and Christian, really underlining the crisis is real. The storm that we are facing here is not an easy one. It's the storm of maybe of our lifetime. It will not go away. I think you also talked about in your bit, Christian, the fact that right now there's been a lot of focus on government packages and what the government is doing, and there is some packages there is help to get, and you should do everything you can on this moment. But really, where we should also put a lot of focus is what can you do to adapt to the new reality we'll see for a while, because it is not going to be it's not going to be the same that it was a few months ago for a long time. That's what we're establishing here. And in this new environment, we need to zoom in on even more than what is the decisions that you might as well take today, given that we can see that this is not going to go away tomorrow. So on to that, let's say hello to 3 new speakers on the next slide. With me here we have Jill and from HIT Training, Adrian from Lightspeed, and Dino from Falcon Social. So for each of you, I would like to really understand your advice, but from different angles. If you take Jill first and go to you, Jill, just to present you on the next slide. Sorry, Jill. I'm simply needing a list here in front of me, Jill, because you have certainly been around hospitality for a long time. I know you have worked more than 20 years, basically specializing in the education sector, but also focused on hospitality businesses. I see in 2006, you co-founded HIT Training, which today has 500 employees. That's impressive. And more than 10,000 apprentices and 3,000 employees every single year. You've also been listed as one of the best companies to work for in Times. And finally, let's just be real about it, Jill. You've been in the Shine Awards. You were one of the most influential women in hospitality, one of the 100 most influential. So I'm really happy to have you and a guest here today to zoom in on an important subject we haven't talked so much about yet, which is it's very sure now that businesses are taking an impact here. Businesses are hurt by the COVID-19, but we haven't talked so much about people, because behind all these businesses there are people, both of course on the owner side, but certainly also employees. So I would like to talk to you about what about the people, Jill, and what about our responsibility as leaders in this crisis? How do we make sure our teams stay motivated? How to make sure they stay with us through the crisis, so that once we start the recovery, they are still with us, ready to help us build back up again. So Jill, take it away. What's your advice here for the business leaders listening in?
Wow, well, it's thank you for the fantastic introduction, Christian. I'm not sure I can entirely live up to that, but I'll give it my best shot. I don't have a pretty dress on today like I normally do at work. I'm sitting here in my hoodie, nice and comfy. I guess in hospitality, I think fundamentally all we've got is people. There are loads of great brands out there and lots of fantastic chefs and amazing venues, but fundamentally, the people are what make us go back to a venue. The people are what you remember about your experience, how they made you feel, and we've got to look after those individuals in this time. So when we talk about leadership, I think the way I think of it is about stepping up. Now is the time that you, in one of my little phrases, which I hope I'm allowed to say, is now's the time to put on your big girl pants. This is when you absolutely get to step up. And I had an email from one of my staff last week. She said her father used to say to her that it's when times are tough that you find out what sort of organisation you work for. And I was really pleased that she felt able to say that to me, because you know we were doing some good stuff, which I will share with you. I've got a slide here. If your colleague could share it, thank you. So I guess to start with, this is kind of some of the golden rules really for me, and these aren't things that have come out of a textbook or have been learnt on an MBA course. This is many years of working in hospitality with people and having fundamentally people-based businesses. So no sausage machine, no fantastic product to sell. And fundamentally, as a leader, I think that you've got to start by having your background, knowing your numbers, understanding exactly where your business is all of the time. It's not the accountant's job to do the numbers. You need to understand them. You need to count your beans. And you need to own that, because you have to have a solid foundation of fact on which to base your decision making. And if you don't have that, then everything else will fall apart. So that's really, really critical. And I think sometimes as business leaders, we sometimes neglect that, and we leave that to the accountants, we leave that to the finance director. And that absolutely, this is no time to be doing this. This is the time to have your numbers really solid and know exactly where you are. Number two, I guess, would be to be honest and always tell the truth. Don't embellish it. Don't try to make it sound better than it is. You're not doing anyone any favors if you try to make things sound better than they are. And we've heard from Peter and from Christian already, and my word, things are tough. But we have clients out there who are doing extraordinary things in really, really difficult times with very, very small staff numbers. They're actually making a difference, and they are keeping spirits up. And in part, that's a really, really essential thing to do. I get the number three, I would say, would be trust. These aren't in any order, by the way. This is all coming out of the great big plan. But trust, you know, when you hire your staff, if you're a sensible leader, if you're a good manager, you surround yourself by people you consider to be great. Fantastic. You hire them for their aptitude and for their attitude and their ability to grow with you and to do an excellent job. So now is the time when perhaps you can't see them, when maybe they're working from home or they're not around, or even that they're at home. Now is the time you've got to put your trust and faith in them, because my God, they're putting their trust and faith in you. And you have to resist that urge to micromanage. And we've all felt it. We've all been there, haven't we? And I guess, you know, I've got 550 staff at the moment. We've all felt that urge. We've seen something come up in the paper and we thought, oh, maybe we should be doing this. And you know, it's not your job. You're the leader, but it's not your job. You start diving in there, and you've got fantastic people who could do it. Trust them to do it. You don't have to be able to see them to make sure that they're getting on with their jobs. They're pros. This is what they do. Always do the right thing. Sometimes doing the right thing means that you've got to bend a few rules. So, oh dear, I was going to give you an example on this, and I'm not really sure that I should, but yeah, I'm going to do it anyway. The right thing. So in my environment, we are working, as you say, we work with 10,000 people on work-based learning programs every year. And well, not every year, more than that every year, but at this point in time, we've got about that sort of number on programs. And we've got one young woman, and she's her chef, and she's been laid off by her employer. She's been furloughed, and she is going on maternity leave next month. So if she can't complete her apprenticeship program this month, if she can't finish it all, then that's pretty much it, probably, because in a year's time, it won't be, you know, she can't do it while she's on maternity leave. It won't be the right time. The rules at the moment tell me that I am not allowed to complete her apprenticeship program. But I've sat down with my team, and I have done everything I can to make sure that she absolutely is not disadvantaged, because fundamentally that is doing the right thing. And one day somebody's going to come over to me, maybe, and there'll be an audit, and somebody from government will come and audit my papers, and they'll say, oh no, you know, you didn't tick that box. And then I'll explain the situation, and I'll ask them whether I did the right thing or not. And that, you know, sometimes you've got to ask for forgiveness, not permission. I'm not saying that's all the time, but sometimes you've got to ask for forgiveness, not permission. Be can do. So the other guys were talking about, and Christian particularly, some really interesting, very practical ideas around, you know, doing deliveries and takeaways and dark kitchens and all that sort of stuff. And that's absolutely fantastic. This is the time to focus on what you can do, not what you can't do. Frankly, as a leader in a business, if your head is so tied up in what you can't do that you can't think about what is possible, then I guess you're in the wrong job, would be my advice to you. Go and find another job would be a good thing, to where somebody else will tell you what to do. You have to care, and I wish I didn't have to say this, and I probably hope I don't, but you have to really care. You don't pretend to care, and you do stuff that shows that you care. So you know, make a call, send a card out to people, just tweet that you're proud of them, whatever it is. You send a message on Facebook. I don't care. Technology is fantastic at the moment. You know, it's really an enabler for everyone to keep in touch. One of the things that a lot of our learners are saying to us is that when they're furloughed, they're kind of, employers are kind of nervous about making too much contact with their staff in case it seemed to be trying to get them to work when they're furloughed, and that's against the rules. And we've got some amazing examples. Some of our clients, the Compass Group, or the whole of their training and development team have been asked to make phone calls to all of the members of staff, thousands of people, just to call in with them and just check if they're okay. And you know, and when they say I'm fine, ask how they really feel as opposed to giving the stock response. You know, and just be that human contact. It's really, really important. Show people you care. Let's hope that I don't have to say that. Let's hope that everyone is doing it. It's really important. If you're people on training programs and they can continue with it, let them continue it. Why not? Why wouldn't you? If they get staff benefits while they're normally at work, then why not let them continue with all those benefits if they can take them up, of course, you know. You know, and some people, you know, if you're aware that you've got some people who might be a bit vulnerable or lonely, then make an extra effort with them. Do as you would be done by. I didn't make this up, by the way. It was in the Sermon on the Mount, so that's quite a long time ago, and it's not a new idea. But if you're ever in doubt as to how you should be treating people, just think about how you'd like to be treated yourself in their circumstances. Walk a mile in their shoes. Think about how it is for them. And engage, of course. Well, we've got to engage. It's today's buzzword. Everybody engages, but back to keeping in touch, keeping everybody up to date, keeping everybody current, and making sure that they're able to engage with you in a practical sense. And I suppose last and not least is about practicing humility. Don't pretend you've got all the answers. And kind of that goes along the same lines as being honest, but to a greater extent, because as leaders, if we pretend we've got all the answers, we're going to fail. That absolutely isn't true. So simple messages: be honest, practice humility, and as a leader, then that should take you quite a long way, I think.
Wow, thanks. Thank you so much, Jill. I particularly picked up one thing I really loved about what you say, and that was the part about, as leaders, focus on what you can do and not about the things you can't do. I think in these times that is such an important message, because we risk being blown away as leaders with all the stuff we can't do now, and we completely forget the world is still out there. There's still a lot of things we can do. So I think that was an incredible, powerful advice there. I can also tell you from Planday, we can certainly see in practice what you are saying is real. On our platform across the 300,000 users we have definitely seen shift obviously goes down. People don't book shifts, but we've seen communication dramatically increase. And that actually makes me happy, because I think it supports what you say here, that right now, even though you have people that are not working for you right now, we're still leaders, and we still need to guide our people, even if it's just from a human point. There's a lot of really frightened people out there now who are insecure, and I think they will remember what did we as leaders do after the crisis. That will be more important for them than ever. So I think we have a brand as well as leaders, and we are shaping that brand up right now based on what we can do and how we guide our teams, even if that means taking really tough decisions like sending people home or telling them, you know, I cannot offer you a job anymore. The way we do that and how we keep it close is key. So
yeah, we will be judged as to whether we did the right thing or not, and people don't always agree with you, and they don't necessarily agree with you, and that's quite right. They're not always going to, but they're not in your shoes. So what people will understand is if you can be clear about your reasons, and you can be honest and open and decent and treat people well, then yeah, I've had people who've thanked me for the way that I've had a redundancy conversation with them, not in the current company, we don't do any redundancies here, but in previous organizations, and you can do the bad thing in a good way.
I actually think someone told me not long ago, you know, when in the future job interviews, probably one question that we as companies will get, during the Corona crisis, how did you react? That will actually set us out as employers to what did we actually do to get our staff well through this. So very important input. Okay, thank you so much, Jill. That was a bit on the human side and the management side of things. Another important aspect of getting to this, Jill, you even touched on it a bit, is technology. And I already see on Slido that there are questions around what could technology do to help us out there. There I would like to zoom in on the next panelist, which is Adrian from Lightspeed. So Adrian, I've been told you've been around the block of technology and hospitality for long term. Even as I've heard here, you have even been serving the hospitality scene in New York yourself before getting into tech. You worked across US, UK, Europe, Asia, in various technology businesses, but the common thread I see is really hospitality and tech. So thank you so much, Adrian. You're right now joining us as a senior VP of EMEA from Lightspeed. So Adrian, before I go into discuss technology in broader terms with you, can you just tell me a little bit about Lightspeed? What do you guys do?
Sure. Well, first off, Christian, thank you very much for having me. And yeah, this event is very much, I think, what we at Lightspeed are about. It's about powering partnerships. And so Lightspeed is a technology platform for hospitality, for restaurants, that enables them to understand all elements of their business, starting with the EPOS system, till systems, and integrating an entire partner ecosystem that does things like payments, loyalty, marketing, managing staff, stock, a whole host of things. And so it really helps operators in a very simple, easy to use platform that's very flexible and robust understand their business so they can operate more efficiently, try new things that optimize their revenue, but also enable them to meet customers in a more personalized way. And so ultimately that's what Lightspeed offers. And yeah, we are a global company, very focused here in the UK, work with more than 74,000 business partners across the globe in about 100 different countries. So very much a global organization dedicated to hospitality.
Fantastic. So Adrian, now with this in mind, we have probably audiences on this call who are very digitalized and fully into technology. And my guess would be we have people among the audience who this is a journey they're about to embark on, which means using technology to optimize their businesses. Can you tell us a little bit about why is technology important during this Corona storm, and how can we use technology to potentially stand stronger on the other side? What advice would you give the audience here in terms of technology choices right now?
Sure. So I think echoing some of the other things that have been said by some of the other participants and panelists. I mean, I think first and foremost, really doing the right thing is super important, and that means for your business, but also for your staff. And I think we've all commented on that about how important that is, and it really has to start there. It has to start with doing the right thing. Lightspeed is a great example. We are committed to keeping our entire team, which is more than 1,300 people across the globe, employed and active in our business as we help to work with our customers to make them feel supported. Additionally, we've worked to use our systems, use data to help our teams and incentivize them to support local businesses. So go out there, we've given them money to spend at local businesses out there. And so that's, again, a piece of the technology platform that we offer, and being able to use that and use data to do that. I think in terms of how businesses need to be operating today, it really is about thinking through, taking a step back, finding ways you can adapt, finding ways that you can plan, and then finding ways to test. And so technology platforms are a great way to do that. Being able to take a step back and see what's working. You look at the slide that you've put up here. I mean, that is the entire partner ecosystem that Lightspeed offers, with hundreds of different partners for operators to choose from. And so being able to step back and looking at your business and seeing, hey, where are we successful? What can we do, right? And the data, the systems that you use showing that, but also understanding where opportunity is. And so for us, what we see, yes, we believe that hospitality is a local business. And what we see today in our data, I think the folks from Tenzo also talked about it. We see, local communities coming around local businesses, and we see in many cases those businesses having basket sizes that are growing. So people in local community are investing in local businesses and actually spending more money per visit. When you think about that, having technology that helps you understand that is super vital. And it should start to change people's thoughts about their businesses and how they operate. So, one of the big things that we've seen, both on the retail side of what we do as well as the hospitality side, is people engaging on e-com, people engaging on delivery, and seeing viable ways for them not just to operate in this current climate, but as they start to think about what comes next, how can they position themselves? If you think back to some of the things I just said just a minute ago about local communities coming around local businesses, and you think about what will happen as lockdown starts to lift in certain communities, neighborhoods, and areas, the reality is that a new association has been made when you think about businesses and the services they offer, restaurants and the services they offer, and the local community that uses those services. And so by being those restaurants who have been able to offer something have strengthened that connection with their local community. And as a result, as this starts to lift, whether that comeback in terms of people dining out is gradual or over a long or quick, the reality is people are going to remember those local businesses that were there for them. And so I think we all have a duty to ensure that the customers that we work with, the businesses that we help to power, are thinking about that and not getting caught up in the negativity of the moment, but taking a step back, thinking and planning. And then I think the last thing is the ability to test. And so one of the things that I think we are very vocal about, and we want to encourage all of our customers, as well as our customers, but also folks that don't use our platform, is now is a perfect time to take a step back, take stock, and test. And so we're trying to remove all friction. If you don't use our e-com platform or delivery or certain aspects of the platform that we offer, we're trying to remove all barriers for taking this opportunity right now and testing it out, seeing if it works for you. And so that's, I think, a key piece about technology is that you can not only see the data, measure it, but you can also start to test new areas where you can have an impact and you can make a difference. And so, as you look at that chart there and all the different areas that you might want to optimize in your business right now, and right now is an amazing time to do that because, we have time. It's a great opportunity to start thinking about what areas of your business you would start to test, and seeing, and again, going back to that thing that I said at the top of the power of partnerships. Working with people, working with companies like the folks on the panel today that really care about businesses, local businesses, and empowering them to test and grow and to adapt to the new world that I think awaits us post-COVID.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you, Adrian. No, I think it's really what is fascinating, and you and I could discuss this about a long time with our jobs that we have, is to actually take businesses that haven't used technology before and start seeing the light they get in their eyes once you start having a full overview of your data. And once you start, I mean, this chart here is fantastic because that really shows once you start having the different areas of your business come together. I mean, between you and Planday, I mean, the small example that you can now actually see exactly how much revenue am I making when we open up again. And how does that inflict to your employee scheduling? How much staff should you have at any given location at a different time to be optimized? And I think that fits with what Christian was talking about in the end. Things are not getting easier, unfortunately, as it looks like now. It may be tough, but once we know the immense opportunities to optimize your business, once you get all your aspects of the business right, there's actually a lot of room for improvements in a lot of the businesses we talk to out there,
Absolutely.
that we can actually go after.
Absolutely.
So,
I was going to say the last one comment on that is in terms of testing, but really picking technology that allows you to yes, test, but focus on the things that you love doing. So, you don't want to pick complicated platforms that complicate your life because you have to learn a whole new thing, but it's about picking things that are simple and easy, integrated together. Again, the power of partnerships, but platforms that allow you to really focus on what's important to you, which ultimately is the guests that are coming into your business as a hospitality operator.
Exactly. So just as we said that the sun is coming out here, you also mentioned another important point, which is community, which I think is really an important aspect. I mean, there's no doubt that it looks like travel is going to be out for quite a while. So I think while a lot of businesses, they have usually been focused on the local community, but then also a lot on the business travelers and tourists, right? I think exactly leveraging on the responsibility we have, all of us, to support our local small businesses, but also what we can give back as a business to the local community. I love that aspect. It's not particularly around technology as such, but I really do agree that it's something that we all need to look into how we can support from that aspect. All right, thank you, Adrian. I know there's a lot of questions also already on Slido around technology, so we'll get back to discuss more. But I want to cover another aspect before we do that, which is also to some degree about technology, but from a little bit different aspect, which is the marketing and social side. It also, by the way, I think touches very well into the aspect of catering for your local community now and the customers that are really close around you in new ways. So Dino, welcome. You're joining us today based on your position in Falcon. I know from my intro to you that you have also worked a long time, both first in fashion and then also in technology for many years before you joined Falcon Social in 2015. For a long time. So Dino, before we jump into to discuss the marketing and social and forth, can you just tell me a little bit about Falcon IO and what you do?
Certainly, and by the way, that intro in regards to fashion, that might perhaps apply waist up, but we were actually joking before we went live on air, especially Jill and I, waist down, it's not looking too pretty in sweatpants and all, so I kind of wish you hadn't said that. So if we had to like stand up or whatever, no.
I mean, we could do that, but I'm not going to do it.
Well, I outed myself anyway. I think a lot of us are in similar scenarios where camera on is really testing certain physical appearances, but whatever, that's not what we're here to discuss today. Hi, everybody. My name is Dino. I am the Director of Community at Falcon IO. It's a social media management platform based actually out of Copenhagen, Denmark as well, where Christian, I'm assuming you're sitting in, unless you're outside of the city. It's basically a MarTech tool and a SaaS platform where you can see your piece of content literally come full circle from the idea in your head all the way to the published, to the monitored, to the boosted, to the promoted post and some social listening components, etc. I've been with the company for about 5 years, which in tech is like dog years times 5, I believe, is it, or 7? What is it with dog years? Not sure. So feels ancient, let's just say that.
Sorry, I was muted. No, I'm practicing that too. But Dino, something I want to discuss with you, and I know you have some really cool insights on the numbers here, also on what data are you picking up from Falcon yourself on the crisis. But let me know what is it you're seeing from a social side of things, and what advice do you give? Particularly, I know you have a strong motion for the marketing and social aspect of things, and what advice would you give the listeners in that regard?
Well, maybe perhaps also fast forwarding to my final concluding remark of all of this is actually the emphasis on community, which both Jill and Adrian just now heavily emphasized. I think it's ever so much more important to think humanity first, even in tough times. Believe it or not, I actually just read an Adweek article where it says even if you are experiencing financial loss, the community wants to hear what it is that you're doing and how it is that you're helping resolve all of this. And social media is the best way. And I think I singled out 3 particular areas that for social media digital marketing can really help you get there, which we'll see in a couple of slides.
Fantastic. But maybe let's jump into data first, so we can see that part.
Definitely. So, and I tried to find the link to this. I could not. I have the PDF version of this report, which I can share with your team. So if you want to distribute it to your audience, you certainly can. But basically what you see here is Facebook releasing a report with key stats last month that touched on all verticals with actually a primarily heavy focus on hospitality, at large. So not just your restaurants and cafes that we're talking about, but also travel, etc. Here, for instance, you see the perceived threat to one's country radically spiking in the matter of weeks, literally. The UK is second from right. And ultimately, in the simplest of terms, crises carry 2 meanings: danger and opportunity. And no matter the difficulty of the circumstances, no matter how dangerous the situation, at the heart of each crisis lies a tremendous opportunity. And I think we need to remember that, because fortune favors the brave and the prepared. And honestly, the past couple of weeks have been filled with extraordinary challenges. And a lot of us have been working relentlessly on the short-term challenges of all of this to support our businesses. But I went a little step further, and one of my co-panelists mentioned the 2008 global economic crisis. I even went back to SARS for a little bit, just for lessons. I looked for potential learnings on how some brands found ways to just rebound stronger, if you will, how new business models were shaped during this crisis, and how bold and timely moves enabled these brands to win, ultimately to gain disproportionate share. So I want to share some of that information with you. But before we look at that, if you could go to the next slide, please. This is also from the same report. I just kind of aggregated it all together. It shows how all industries are pretty much impacted. Here I singled out what I could find from hospitality. Again, broader spectrum. Several industries are impacted more severely than others and are experiencing larger consequences. For instance, consumers are quickly turning to e-commerce and carrying out as much of our lives as we possibly can online, purchasing products you normally would in store, ordering takeout or delivery from restaurants we actually prefer to visit in person. But the estimated global restart for all of us is totally different, as we just heard. For consumer products or electronics, it's Q2, and then it kind of goes from there spectrum-wise. Experts are estimating that airlines, which I think are relevant for a lot of you in tourist hubs. I'm sitting here in New York. We heavily rely on tourism. Soho, well, maybe if I say both Soho London as well as Soho New York are probably empty right now, where the majority of our restaurants are. We're expected to bounce back late Q3, early Q4. Now, don't quote me on this. This is based on research where we're seeing from the houses of Adweek, Facebook, etc. But if you go on to the next slide, I want to highlight, and you'll get these slides so you can really read about some of those stats in detail. These are my 3 things that I would actually recommend, and I didn't want to add animations because I think now is the time to go and get down and dirty, so we don't have to worry about taking frantic notes or anything. But some consumer behavior might permanently shift if you think about safety, quality assurance, and the need for transparency, which we talked about a lot. Consumers may be less price sensitive, though, in the quest for this quality and transparency, and that will work to all of your advantage. Now, one of the first steps, and that is what we consult a lot of our customers, is to really go back to basics before pandemic, during pandemic, after pandemic, but especially now, if you do have the time. People may not be searching for you online at this time the same way I would open up a Yelp app to check out where can I find the next Italian restaurant nearby, but they will. And when these restrictions have been lifted and everyone starts looking for places to dine, where will you actually be in those search results? So I want you to take some time to optimize your online presence and ensure your social media channels are consistent. Fill out all of your profiles. Too many gaps are actually out there when I'm looking for Indian food, and I'll put my hand in fire that it doesn't matter, again, whether that's London or New York, Soho, so to speak. This is the time to actually go back and check, is all the information up to date? Does your menu view well on desktop versus mobile device versions of your restaurant? Do you have a reservation system integration on your website for easy booking? Are your images up to date? Are you capturing emails and building a mailing list? This should happen, you know, again, before, during, and after a crisis. It doesn't really matter. What else can you add to your website that might be valuable to your audience? Is it your story? Is it your chef's bios, etc.? And you can also make sure to include information people may need to see now regarding your operation. So including your decision to close during COVID, how you're supporting staff, which we've heard is very important, and what your methods of safe and sterile food processing look like. So set yourself up as a Google business is another tip. Might sound so redundant and so basic, but believe it or not, even in a large city like New York, I very often try to Google something and cannot find a verified Google business for some of the retail and hospitality places I am trying to visit. And then the final tip into this back to basics category is improve your search engine optimization and the ease of use of your website. So UX, UI, if you have the means. SEO is something that all companies are working to improve right now to, again, show up in the first 10, or at least on the first page when people do actually start looking for you a lot more. And this goes hand in hand with making your website navigational and accessible to online orders. You must ensure that the menu is readable, and descriptive. So this middle bracket, the second tip, I'd like you to think about leveraging your omni-channel to provide an alternative customer experience, as I'm calling it. So consumers may do more pickup or home delivery than usual now in the moment. That part is clear, we've covered it. But what you need to do is optimize or reprioritize channel and content mix for shifts in media consumption during this outbreak. So put your bets on surging channels. It may not be LinkedIn anymore. Actually, yesterday somebody asked me, is LinkedIn the place to go? May not be right now. Some of those even classic B2B customers of ours are actually seeing a surge on Instagram, where previously they would be scratching their heads if that had happened. So be aware where people are now and today. Read up on some of these consumer behavioral studies from Facebook and Co, because I think they will give you clues not about when you will rebound, but also how you can rebound. Support what they're doing now, as in the people. As a brand, this is a moment to recognize, connect, and Jill, I have to mention again, engage. It's super important, and support these new changes. Adjust your channel mix, content, and potential partnerships, because they will help secure efficient reach as well as relevance at this time. Responding, adding value, and being agile in the now, especially in lower familiarity areas where people will most value support and be open to new brands and support relevancy for the later. But how can you actually tell the story? I really want to, take this down to super practical example like story level. Creating compelling content is one way around how your business is stepping up to take precautions. Activate that brand purpose to support hygiene and virus containment efforts. I think that's very important. I even got an email from my florist, which I probably would have previously deleted if I'm not looking for flowers in the moment. But today, I actually read that damn email probably like 10 times because I care. And as a consumer, I'm not telling you as a marketer who's trying to BS you. But don't just focus on containment efforts. Keep life and livelihoods going. Add that brand aligned value, if you will, to people and the broader community. Ultimately, developing a message on how your brand is helping society heal and rebuild. And some of the examples I have are, go behind the scenes, whatever medium you feel is the most appropriate. Share how you're coping. Maybe you can go live and share recipes, tutorials, and live cooking shows. Host a live stream educational workshop on hospitality safety, cocktail how-tos with one of your bartenders. I always think about that Tom Cruise movie, which I can't think of right now, but where he's literally learning how to become a bartender. And on it, as I literally sit inches away from my kitchen and supplies are running low after a 7 to 10 day period, I thought, what if actually my favorite restaurant ran a bare shelf cooking class? So people are going to quickly get tired of preparing the same old dishes. There's only so much pasta I can be dealing with. So launch a small group cooking class, all virtually, by the way, with your chef to inspire some creative dishes based around canned supplies, like pasta. Maybe your expert chefs might be cringing at the thought of this, but you really have to think about that you're dealing with cooped up city folk who for the life of them can't cook, and now they're being forced to.
Dino, we'll need to wrap up. We have a lot of really good questions online here. So is there a key message you wanna round this up with?
Plenty actually, but you'll get the slides. So let's look at the questions. I'm sure there's more I can squeeze in there.
No, fantastic. Thank you. But the message, I love what you said here. It really is about, make sure you stay relevant. Is what I hear you're saying.
From a marketing standpoint, budgets are shifting online anyway. That's where people are. So that's where your focus should be if you do have the means.
Exactly. So if we look into so far, what have we learned? If you take the next slide. Yeah, before I go into that, just again, Slido is still open. There's a lot of good questions in there now, but go in there even if you don't have a question and check out so you can upvote. So do that. I also just want to say, first question I know is that has been upvoted the most is will we share these slides? And to Dino's point, yes, we will share them. So you'll get a link to this webinar. So you will have both the voiceover and the slides sent to you. But if you look at what have we learned so far, Christian and Peter told us pretty well. If you think this is going to stop now, the bad message you can say is it's not. There's nothing that suggests this will all go away. The virus is still floating around. Societies are locked down, but even when they open up, if you see a similar pattern as we saw in China, it will take a while before this bounces back. So that's the reality of things. However, we have also heard from our panel there's a lot of things we can do from a people side and leadership side, as Jill was talking about, and as Adrian was talking about. Look at technology. How can you get better insights to your business, basically all across? And as Dino say, make sure that you look into the fact that since we are not, for a while at least, catering for the tourist point of things and business travelers, look into your local community and understand and ask yourself, are you actually relevant for your local community? Because those will be your customers for quite a while once things are starting to open up and in the recovery phase. And then be creative. Understand if this is then the reality, which it is. Don't stop up and think about it, and to Jill's point, focus on the things that we cannot do, but start thinking about what is the very concrete things we can do right now to make sure our business gets through the next period. It is a period. I mean, I don't think any of us really believe this will never ever change. So the question is, how do we get to the next period that will be quite long in the best possible way and stay strong on the other side? I think a lot of strong businesses will come out of this because we are forced into a new way of thinking, into optimizing our businesses and become even more creative than we've ever been. But let's zoom in and look at some of the good questions that has come in. So one question, and the first one that most of you have voted on is actually about your employees. So there's a question that says, what will the future look like with regards to the well-being and caring for our employees? Will we see a basic change in culture when it comes to the relationship between employer and employee on the other side of this? And I think, Jill, I'll have to address this question to you to start with.
Well, do we need to change our culture? I can't answer that question because I don't know what your businesses are like, people. If you feel as though you need to make a change, then now's the time to start spending some time thinking about it. I would go back to what has made you consider why you need to make a change in your culture. Has something gone wrong? Are you struggling to keep contact with your staff? Were people relieved to be furloughed and they've disappeared and you probably never see them again? What is it that's giving you those thoughts? What is it? What are you where is it coming from? Where's this consideration of having to change the way you do things coming from? Because clearly, I mean, I personally am not feeling like I need to change anything specifically. We've had to change how we communicate with people, because I used to tear up and down the country like an idiot in my car doing 30,000 miles every year and visiting all the team meetings. Now I can do that from the comfort of my own sitting room, which is fantastic. But in terms of actually changing how we behave with our people, that has not changed for me. But if you're feeling that it does need to, because the engagement isn't quite what it ought to be, well, now absolutely is the time to be considering what you would like that to look like, and have some really deep thinking around why you want to make those changes and what you want it to look like before you set off and try to make a wholesale change. Because back to that whole thing about being an authentic individual and an authentic leader, if you read a book and it says, oh, here's a great idea, here's what you should do to be a good leader, it won't make you a great leader. You need to have some real consideration about what's right for your organization.
Fantastic, thank you. Yeah, I think a key thing here is also to think about for me again, you'll need your team on the other side. So to your point, Jill, if there's something in your culture that suggests that you'll be a danger if you can get people back, now is a real good time to change it, and to make sure that you let people know that you do care and that you have a big passion for your own business and from their well-being. So communicating strong. And be a visible leader even in this time where we are not together, I think must be a key.
Yeah, I think, but ask the question, if you're going to step up and be that big leader of this organization, then you've got to be big enough to be able to take the bad news too. So if you're getting a sense that you've not quite got this right at the moment, then you need to talk to the people that you need to get it right with, and find out what it is about your style or about the way you communicate or whatever it is that's concerning you. You need to find out from them what the problem is.
Exactly. Adrian, you had a comment on this as well?
Yeah, I think all those points are great, especially around communication and style and those things. But I also think I also throw out there, for Lightspeed, we're like a 1,300 people organization globally. And historically, we've always been an organization that prizes people coming to actual offices and working out of those offices. Well, lo and behold, this scenario and this situation has caused us to take a step back, listen to our employees, have a conversation. And I think, one of the things that we've learned coming out of this is it doesn't need to be a one size fits all. And so as you think about a restaurant and you think like, yeah, your staff that's front of house, yeah, they kind of got to be there when you reopen, right? But back of house functions, accountants, reservationists, all of those other functions that don't necessarily need to be there minute to minute interfacing with your customers. I think there's a golden opportunity to have that conversation, to think. And so just putting it out there that it doesn't need to be a one size fits all kind of solution. It can be catered and customed and bespoke to the different roles that you have in your business.
Well, yeah, but also to the different types of individuals as well, Adrian, for sure, because you clearly we all have those situations where we've got people who work for us where people have got little kids, they've got caring responsibilities for their elderly parents perhaps, or a disabled partner, all sorts of different, everyone's got a different life, everyone's got a different set of challenges. And if you go back to that whole thing about you trust your gut when you take people on and you employ brilliant people, then you're employing them for their brilliance, not for their ability to spend time in the office or to fill in a timesheet between 9 and 5 or whatever those hours might be. So 100%, Adrian, completely agree with you. It's something that I do in my organization. I've got a lady who works from Spain and she works in the UK, but she works from Spain and she works in the evenings because she fits in with people who are coming off shift late. So it works for her and it works for our business and it works for our learners as well, who get to have that contact when they want to have it. So there's lots of ways. Flexibility is something that everyone's being forced to learn about, but we shouldn't throw it all away when this is all over.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I think another question that a lot of people is voting on here is I think we heard from Christian's slides that we saw in China at least that the more established brands and bigger chains were bouncing back a bit quicker. So someone is asking here, as a smaller independent business, what concrete steps can we do to stand strong on the other side of this? And I guess this is a bit of a broader question that we could all have some input on. So I'll actually open it up for the panel to discuss. So is there any key input on this from the slides? What can or from all of you? You covered different aspects of it. But maybe Christian from Tenzo, do you have a key point on the smaller independent businesses? What concrete actions can they take to sort of match the bigger brands?
Yeah, I think, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. And I think Dino will probably have a lot to say here, but I think clearly the advantage that the bigger brands have is that they're recognized and there's an element of trust and people wanting to flock back to them first. I think the smaller brands need to try to emulate that as much as possible. And I'll let Dino jump in a second, but I think things like reassuring them, making sure that going out of your way to show customers that you're being careful in terms of hygiene, in terms of social distancing, in terms of thinking about what they've been worried for several months about, and making sure that you set up your restaurant in that way. It might be, for example, making sure that whether the government requires it or not, that everyone's wearing a face mask in the restaurant. You know, all your staff are, because that will just reassure them. Making sure that you have at the entrance something to sanitize your hands. So just things like that to really reassure them on that, and then really communicating. What we're doing as Tenzo is we're making sure we're communicating with all our customers on a weekly basis, bringing them the latest updates on what's happening, and making sure that they're just thinking about Tenzo and knowing that we're here at their sides while they go through that. And I think it's the same for the restaurants, right? Making sure that they communicate with their restaurants to their customers to make sure that they stay engaged with the brand.
That's a fantastic input. I think your whole point, you know, make sure your local community knows you're there. That's a really relevant thing. I think Dino, that was some of the things you were talking about as well. You know, can you get a bit more on your side? If you're not like a big business and a big brand, but a smaller independent business, what can you do then that will actually make some concrete steps to make you recognized among the bigger brands?
I totally agree. I think if you take care of your locals, they'll take care of each other and they'll take care of you. So one of the things I've actually been seeing in terms of loyal guests or regulars are video campaigns, which I think are a great way to be community focused at this time. So a video campaign showing client appreciation of your responsiveness or safety first standards would be a wonderful way. So now is a great time to revisit some of those top reviews you're getting on whatever platforms you're on, and push them in front of your audience. Of course, making sure that you're not self-serving and transactional in your language and copy, but have a loyal guest respond to what it is that you've been doing great. I got in another email from Sweetgreen. I'm not sure if you guys have that in the US, but it's a fast food salad, very healthy restaurant chain, and they really honed in and emphasized what they're doing in terms of sealing their salad bowls a lot more than usual. I responded very well to that. So I would say video campaigns would be a wonderful way, kind of like
Fantastic.
a testimonial.
Thank you. Just cutting to another aspect here. A lot of the audience on this call has probably furloughed employees, I could imagine. And some of you ask, what is our opinion on the furlough programs? Will they stand for a while? So will we keep being able to use government programs on furlough? Peter, do you have any insights on that? And I guess the real answer is we must check with a local expert to that. But do you have any knowledge on the furlough programs from the government? How long will we see them be in place?
I've got no knowledge other than what the government have already said, which we're all hearing, which is they're currently running, I think, until the end of May. I can't believe it won't be extended beyond that. The smart guess, I know there's been lots of conversations about this, and I think people are assuming it will be at least 3 months. I think if we can learn one thing from the way governments behaved in previous crises, in the recessions, they learned a long time ago that it turned around and bit them if they forced too many businesses to go out of business. I know that that was the lesson that was learnt during the Gulf War, particularly when a lot of hotels were sent into receivership, and it caused such structural damage to the industry that the government ended up with massive costs associated with that. So my guess is that they will keep it running for as long as they need to, and I can't believe it's going to finish in May. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes beyond the end of June, but it really depends what happens in terms of the releasing of the lockdown and the return to normality. I don't have any, obviously nobody knows what the government's going to say till they say it, but I just know that the mood music that's coming out is they're aware that the UK, that the commerce has to be supported through this. But,
Yeah.
that's what I know so far.
Peter, on the other side of this, there are also a lot of people asking, what about hiring new staff, like hiring and training staff? When is the right time to start looking at that again? I mean, obviously, there will be business that's also lost staff here and that need to keep looking into the future. Do we have any insights to that? And I guess that could be more than you just, Peter, but when is the right time to start hiring again?
Well, I think the first thing is that what's most important is, and several people have spoken about this, is staying in touch with your furloughed staff so they're ready and feel engaged when they come back. And I think it's fabulous that you know, there are now these communication channels like your own there, Christian, which people are using to stay in touch with their furloughed staff. In terms of when you start recruiting, you've got to build in the time to find the people, to onboard them, to get them into your character, the character of your business, in time for when you need them. So you need to start planning ahead now. It's so difficult at the moment because we don't know how long we're going to be down for and what the rate of return is going to be. But I think I'm beginning to see that we're getting to a stage where people are looking forward, businesses are looking forward to when they reopen, and there has to be a plan for that. But how you second guess it, I don't have an answer to that. I don't know if any of the other panelists do. Jill may well have some thoughts on this. Sorry, Jill.
Jill, do you have special insights on this one?
No, no real special insights, I'm afraid. It's tricky, isn't it? We're in a position where there are so many unknowns that that where we come back from it, I don't have the answers, I'm afraid.
No, I don't. I think that's the point. At this, I think personally, I think Q2 is a very special moment because it's right now we're in the middle of the wave. My advice personally is, and that's the same I use to run Planday, is to do whatever we can to make sure we stabilize the situation over this quarter, because I think we will learn a lot during this particular quarter that we can use to guide us even better for longer term decisions. So that's my own personal preference on that subject. There is one particular question that I like to end up with, given the panelist of speakers here, which is a question about the technology piece. That is a question that says, how will technology aid the recovery and the future of hospitality? So that's obviously a big question, but I think it's a really good and relevant question for you, Adrian, to zoom in on.
Absolutely. Sorry there, I think that's working now. Yeah, no, I think it comes back to Two things really: the power of partnerships, right? So really thinking about technology not as just some feature or thing that you turn on, but it's an investment in a relationship where somebody or some company is going to help you make that thing that you want to turn on and test easier. And so I think that's first and foremost. Don't lose the human side of the partners that you choose to work with. And I think that that's super important. I think the other big thing about how technology helps us is the ease at which it allows us to test things and to test hypotheses, to test ideas that we have. I mean, back in the day, I remember way back when working in New York City, trying to understand, are other businesses as busy as I am right now or not? You'd send runners and waiters that didn't have full sections to like walk the block to see like were other businesses busy. And I think now to like our platform that literally allows operators to understand how do their numbers and metrics match up to the broader community that's around them? What does the historical data look like? And so, there's all, and again, that's a great example too. Of as an operator, you don't want to feel like, oh, I got to swim in this sea of data and I don't know how to make sense of it. There are partners that you can leverage that help you trend that and make it super simple. But nonetheless, the technology piece is the part that really helps you visualize that, benchmark it, and understand, how are you performing? Ultimately allows you to test faster, test with less risk. And so I think that's de-risking the unknown is a big thing that that technology can offer to operators.
Yeah, no, and I think one particular side, which is a good reminder, is what software as a service actually is. If there's users out there that are like, but how can I even get started? Hey, I want to buy into it. I think the key message is for both Adrian's and my business and Christian's and Falcon and so forth. We worked extremely hard to make it very, very easy. Just look it up, test it, get started with it. You can use any browser or phone or whatever and get started. And I'm with you, Adrian. Now is the time. This is we're in a storm, but it's also quiet before the storm to some sense. Because as soon as things are opening back up again, we're going to be super, super busy by capturing all the customers and potential that is there. So right now is the planning, and right now is the time to get stuff in place. And it's not actually very hard. Most of our software also speaks together, so that we can actually share data across the platforms and so forth. So get in, check it out, and understand. I think having the insights and the knowledge about your business will be very, very critical to get you through the other side when things starts back up again.
I think one other comment I'd make too is about the digitization of experience. And so I think Dino was talking to it earlier around web profiles and making sure you're visible where consumers are trying to make decisions. I think that's another key thing to think about technology and how you leverage it. How can technology help you recreate that experience in store, online, in the virtual space, in the digital world? And I think every operator right now should be taking a step back and thinking about that, from your website to how you describe yourself to how you link with other businesses that are local to you in your neighborhoods and communities, and how you partner within that local sphere is super big to think about how you leverage digitization and the virtual into that.
Fantastic. Listen, we are up on time. So I want to sort of end here on Jill's keynote as before. Based on all this input, think about what can you do? What are the options based on what you have? But also open your mind to see you can do more than you may think so. If you start realizing and acknowledging this situation is not going to go away within the next couple of months and things are going to be back to normal, I think that's when we start to really think, okay, if that's the case, then what can we do? And I think we got some really brilliant advice, both from Christian, from Tenzo, thank you, Christian, and from Jill, and from Adrian, and from Dino, and from Peter on this. Think about your people, think about how you manage your business, set a good example that will be used for how you manage your business after the crisis is over and we start seeing it coming back. Start working with your data, see your businesses partnering up, create an online presence. You are fighting with the bigger brands, unless you are a big brand, but all of us has to be relevant on the other side. And create a picture window where you really cater for your local community, so you can get those people that are nearby you in as customers on the other side. And then carefully build back up your business till the days where we see business will normalize, whenever that is. So that was the input from here. Thank you so much for listening in. Thank you to all the partners and the panelists that shared your advice. Have a brilliant day, as far good as we can in these times. But let's go out there and fight this storm so that we can journey together. We are all dependent on the hospitality industry working well to get through this. So thank you very much. We'll send you a link with these slides so that you have them. You're welcome to share them. And you're also welcome to contact any of the panelists here to get deeper into discussions and good advice. Thank you. That was it from here. Yeah.